It's 24 degrees Celsius in Abuja, the Federal Capital Territory. It's looking a little overcast, but never mind. We are here, and it's a good morning from us here in Abuja. Welcome to Sunrise Daily, your daily dose of sunshine. I'm Maokwe Ogun Yusuf.
Good morning and welcome. I'm Kayla. We have a lovely Friday morning right here in Nation's Capital. It's sunny. And that's coming after...
Sunny?
Yes, it's sunny this morning.
Sunny? I didn't say the sun.
I did.
As I did say.
It's sunny right now, but it's a relief because it's been raining for the past few days. But very nice Friday morning, and one that comes with a lot of surprises because we had a lot of things happen between when we went to bed and when we woke up this morning, Mark.
And that's precisely what we're going to start with. I mean, yesterday the president signed the 4 tax reform bills. They are now acts into law, so they've been signed, which we'll be talking about much later. But while we thought that, okay, that was what we're going to be focusing on, barring any other focus on what is the development in the state, then we saw this coming to you right now. Okay, it doesn't appear that my producer and cameraman have seen the, just what you're seeing right now, the visuals that you're seeing right there. The Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Nyesom Wike, and also the governor, suspended governor of Rivers State, Siminalayi Fubara, right there in handshakes. You can describe it as warm if you want. Some people will say, well, can we say warm handshakes? Will it be appropriate to say so? But, well, whether warm or not, they were in handshakes. And shortly after that, you can also see they had a meeting with the president. They also spoke to the press saying that peace has now been restored, according to them, that the president has intervened and that they have agreed to some terms of peace. And I heard Governor Fubara say that they hope that they will be able to sustain the peace. I guess that is the prayer of every Nigerian. So the question is this the end of the emergency rule in River State? If it is, when are we going to get the final pronouncement? But this is what we're bringing you this morning. I'll let you listen to the briefing that they gave, and then we'll have a little conversation on it. Please listen.
6th of June 2025, that peace has finally returned to the state. We all agreed to work together with the governor, and the governor also agreed to work together with all of us. We are members of the same political family. Yes, just like humans, you have disagreements, and then you also have a time to also settle your disagreement, and that has been finally concluded today, and we have come to report to Mr. President that is what we have agreed. So for me, everything is over, and enjoy everybody who believe to work with us, to also work together with everybody. That there's no more acrimony, there's nothing to say we are disagreeing. We have all agreed on everything. So thank God. For me, it's a day we have to thank Almighty God.
For me, it's very important that this day has come to be. What we need for the progress of River State is peace. And by the special grace of God this night, with the help of Mr. President and the agreement of the leaders of the states, including our leader, peace has returned in River State. We'll do everything within our power to make sure that we sustain it this time around. Thank you.
You heard that. We'll do everything in our power to sustain it this time around. Kayla, I do not know what you made of the handshakes, if you thought they were rather warm. The person... I was trying to read the body language of the speaker.
I was just going to say, we haven't spent so much time watching body language as we did on this particular video. Watching Martin Amewule's face, watching Fubara's smile with that beret on, watching the handshake, they turn towards each other, you get the feeling that, when your mom says, make up with your brother immediately, I'm turning off the TV. It gave that vibe, But, ultimately, if they're saying this right now, then that means that some kind of agreement, and you know that's one of Minister Wike's favorite words, agreement. So some kind of agreement must have been reached. What is that agreement going to be? You know, one of the questions we've been asking about this particular issue in Rivers State is, well, some people have said that Fubara should have just walked away, because how many things are you going to acquiesce to? How many times are you going to beg? Are you going to be able to be governor without having all the influences and without being pushed here and there? Is that something that he has agreed to? Have they agreed to let him govern? How are they going to work together? Mr. Martin Amewule's face, you know, didn't look very friendly, but they say they've sorted this out. What does that mean going forward? Does that mean that this, I said ceasefire agreement, does that mean that the administrator will leave and Fubara will come back? Is that what this means? How will governance follow after this? Is peace at last? With a question mark. So we're watching to see how it all unfolds. Mr. Akpabio said something recently at one of the commissionings going on.
When he was representing the president.
When he was representing, and he said that Fubara was moving to the APC. Or he said Fubara was next among the people who will be moving to the APC. Is that something that has happened? Have they agreed on that? The next few days are going to be really interesting because we need to know what sacrifices were made for this peace. And are those sacrifices what the Rivers people want? Is that an example that we want the Nigerian people to learn from? We're watching all of this to see how it all unfolds. But that emergency rule, with all the criticisms against it, the budget situation, with the local government situation, with sole administrators at local levels, you know, all of that drama going on. We need to see actual governance in Rivers State. And that's something we're watching to see how it all unfolds between all of these parties who seem to be really smiling and chummy in front of the president this time.
So we'll eventually wait. It's a wait-and-see game. I think only time will be able to answer the questions. And Kayla, you raised a very important issue, which is that of the people of Rivers State. Don't forget that they had been the one on the streets protesting that the emergency rule that had been imposed on them and asking for their governor to come back. A few remarks by the governor in the middle of the suspension, you know, were made, and some people were saying, no, Governor Fubara, you cannot be saying that, especially when he was saying, I'm tired, I'm not, my mind has left there. You know, those kinds of things. So, but the people of Rivers State, you know what it is that they want. What they want is a democracy that works for them and delivers the goods. Will this agreement work for them and deliver the goods which they want? Again, only time will tell. But we will take a break now. When we come back, we'll be talking about the tax reform laws that have now been signed, that were newly signed, and what the implications will mean for Nigeria, what tax professionals can look forward to, and what that will mean for our revenue base. In just a moment, please stay with us.
After nearly 9 months of economic turbulence, dialogue and legislative action, President Bola Tinubu finally appends his signature today to 4 transformative tax reform bills, capping a long journey of fiscal overhaul. It all began October 2024 when President Tinubu formally transmitted the Nigeria Tax Bill, Tax Administration Bill, Revenue Service Bill, and Joint Revenue Board Bill to the National Assembly, marking the first step in his ambitious agenda to modernize Nigeria's tax system.
100% consent and assent of all of them.
By March 13, 2025, the House of Representatives approved the package with notable tweaks. VAT remained at 7.5% instead of the proposed 12.5%. Exemptions were made for minimum wage earners, and revenue sharing between federal and states was adjusted, capping accruable VAT for high-yielding states at 30%.
We actually have drafted a new withholding tax regulation already as we speak. The only reason why it hasn't been published is because some of the things we included require that we amend some of the existing laws. So we put the amendment in the emergency bill, waiting for the lawmakers to pass so we can then issue the regulation. But I can discuss the principles. If you are not liable to tax, then nobody will deduct withholding tax on you.
On May 9th, the Senate passed the revised bills endorsing the harmonized tax framework, including a modest VAT hike, global minimum tax provisions for big multinationals, and major reforms in Petroleum Profit Tax Administration under the newly fashioned Nigeria Revenue Service.
Distinguished colleagues, a bill for an act to repeal certain acts on taxation and consolidate the legal frameworks relating to taxation and enact the Nigeria Tax Bill to provide for taxation of income, transactions and instruments, and for related matters 2025, third reading taken and passed.
Throughout this process, consultations were extensive. Business groups, tax experts, governors, NGOs, and labor unions, including the Labour Congress, were engaged as the station reeled from strikes and protests in mid-2024 over cost of living pressures and subsidy removals.
We stand united against the unjust tax bill trying to bleed us dry. Crafted behind closed doors, this bill slaps heavy taxes on Nigerian workers, meager housing, transportation, and medical allowances, while letting the rich and corporation off the hook.
These reforms aim squarely at strengthening revenue collection, simplifying administration, enhancing intergovernmental coordination, and ultimately coaxing Nigeria's low tax-to-GDP ratio upward, all in service of recovery and sustainable investment.
Well, for those who remember, because it's immediate history, immediate past history, the tax reform laws that have now been signed faced quite a number of obstacles before they eventually got here. First, we got an opposition from the Nigeria Governors Forum who said that a little more time should be given for consultation. But we saw the president saying whatever consultation needed to be done should have been done within the, or should be done within the confines of the National Assembly. And that was precisely what happened. We also saw the opposition from labor leaders who thought that that was not going to be favorable to Nigerian workers. But I think all of that has now been put into consideration, and we now have what we have, where the president has signed those reform bills into law. We're now joined this morning to take a look at what it is that has been signed and the implications moving forward for Nigeria's tax regime. We have in our studios this morning Mr. Samuel Agbeluyi, who is the immediate past president of the Chartered Institute of Taxation of Nigeria, CITN. Good morning and welcome to Sunrise Daily this morning.
Good morning. Good to be here. Thank you.
Indeed, Nigerians have a saying, you know, sometimes when you look on social media, they will say, oh, what I ordered versus what I got, you know, especially when they're dissatisfied with what they got, you know, what it looked like online. I'm just wondering, because initially when with the these tax reform laws, where they are laws now, when they were proposed as bills, there was a lot of resistance, a lot of opposition. And I imagine that there's been a lot of give and take. For you as a tax professional, I want to imagine that you've also been through some of it. You saw the initial bill as proposed, and I imagine that you also be privy to what has now been signed. Are you satisfied, or do you think that there was too much compromise to get to where we are?
Thank you very much. I'm very satisfied. Not just satisfied, very satisfied. Because it's what we have now is a massive or material positive progress from where we were as at yesterday. So it's a big leap for the country, and so we should celebrate that major step that the country has taken together, notwithstanding the different perspective. I would rather use the word perspective instead of opposition. Because a massive country like Nigeria, you don't expect that massive change to come, and everybody will say Hosanna from day one. So to that extent, many people brought forward their perspective, and of course, that also helped, not in terms of the input to the bills as it was there alone, but also it created a lot of awareness. Many people never bother about what taxation is or was, Many people never pay attention to it. And you saw manners of comment, even from those who have never read the bill, as at the time they were criticizing what they have never read. So that attention is needed because Nigeria as a country, in order to enter into that proper status of a civilized environment, needs to put taxation in the forefront. We need to make it our sustainable way of financing government expenditure. If we get money from the natural resource, be it petroleum or whatever, other mineral resources, it's an addition. But there is this inherent benefit that a tax-compliant nation gets when you have everybody compliant, and that is the citizens tend to take their leaders to account. You don't just drop your money, you don't just pay your taxes and you go to bed on election day. You don't just drop, you want to see what that money is used for. And it is when you take your leaders to account for whatever they are doing that you get the best. Sometimes the leaders may mean well, but when they have those citizens or followers, they tend to absolute power corrupt absolutely.
So you believe that these tax reform laws will get Nigerians interested in the taxes that they're paying and what is currently being used for?
Naturally, it will.
Okay, well, just in case people are wondering what has been signed, 4 bills were signed yesterday into law. They include the Nigeria Tax Bill, that's the ease of doing business, which consolidates existing tax laws into one harmonized code. The Nigeria Tax Administration Bill, which establishes unified legal and operational tax standards across federal, state, and local governments. You also have the Nigeria Revenue Service, because the FIRS has now been scrapped and is now being named the Nigeria Revenue Service. It's supposed to be a more autonomous, performance-driven Nigeria Revenue Service. So you also have the Joint Revenue Board Establishment Bill, which introduces a governance structure for federal, state, local revenue cooperation, including a tax appeal and ombudsman. Of all of these tax reform laws that have now been signed, which of them excites you the most as a tax professional?
All should excite me.
All of them should excite you, but I imagine that there are some, some areas more than others.
You see, it's a system. And the chain will be as strong as its weakest link. So if you have the Nigerian Tax Act and you don't have the administration, that's Nigerian Revenue Service, then the Act will not implement itself. You have the Revenue Service and you don't have the Act. The Revenue Service has always been there. FRS has always been there. But they were operating old laws. So we need everything must cohabit and must work together. So it will be difficult to say to place one ahead of the other. And that is the wisdom, I think, of putting all this together, looking at the tax system, because if you address one and you are not looking at the other side, you are not going to get the desired result. So all the laws excite me.
So let's take a look at some of the pushbacks that happened earlier. We've been listening to Nigeria's taxman, and of course, listening to everyone in this sector talking about how these things have been sorted out. So let's understand what has been sorted out. The grouse that the northern governors, especially with the Nigerian Governors Forum, actually generally had with the tax bill. Maybe you can explain that a little bit more. I don't want to be the one to do that. If you can explain what their grouse was and how that has been sorted in this particular signing.
Okay, thank you. I will still use the word perspective of the northern governors. And the first is that I was a member of that committee, the Presidential Committee, and we actually consulted. But in the way of Nigeria, permit my expression, the required attention were not paid, possibly because they felt it won't have the kind of significant effect until it got to the National Assembly. So, and when it got to the National Assembly, everybody knew that something had to be done, and everybody woke up, so to say. Now, the comment centered on VAT.
Yes.
And not just VAT, but the distribution of the fallout of the revenue you get from VAT. That was the main point of contention as to the distribution. Initially, a lot of attention was paid to derivation. That is where you get the money from. And the point is that even as it was submitted by the committee and the President to National Assembly, derivation was to, the proposal had addressed the fear of many people. That is the headquarter effect.
Yes.
And Lagos State, possibly Port Harcourt, and possibly Kano,
Abuja.
to an extent, Abuja, were the main beneficiary of that, whereby the accountant or the taxman just look at, he wants to make his annual, weekly, monthly, or annual return, and he just apportion everything to where he resides, where the headquarters is based.
Yes.
And so that puts some other jurisdiction in a very weak end. And I need to say at this point that VAT is a consumption tax. So you don't just consume in Lagos alone. You don't consume in Port Harcourt alone. I'll give an example of sugar. Sugar is consumed more in the north than in the south. There are statistics backing that. And so people felt, no, this was not go on. But that has actually been addressed in the original proposal that was submitted. Okay, let's agree that it was not, people didn't see it.
Yes.
So that became a major point of discussion. And people also felt that everybody must be carried along. And I also agree. And my comment, I appear on your television, particularly in Lagos, on the number of occasions, marketing the bills then. And my comment had always been, no state wins if the other are not winning. So you need to be, everybody must win together.
So how has that been addressed?
It has been addressed by placing 50% on whatever you do in your state, you get 50% of what is gotten from VAT.
Okay.
Then 30% for derivation, then the population gets 20%.
Okay.
So that has kind of assuaged the fear of some of the people. And that is what we have now. And the position of the institute that I represented as I was marketing the bills then is that it's a bill, now law, and we can amend. But let's start somewhere. Don't throw away the baby with the bathwater, because it was a positive thing that the president brought to us.
One of the explanations that we've gotten from Mr. Taiwo from yesterday and of course this morning is the tax bracket situation. And just like he said, many of us, we don't like to classify Nigerians, but for this particular situation, we do have to do that classification. So just so I can understand what he's saying, if you're earning beneath 250,000, that's a two-person household with 3 children, right? So that's a 5-person household. That's the explanation he gave us yesterday. A 5-person household, 3 kids, 2 parents who are alleged, well, hopefully earners. 250,000 naira, no charge, no tax on that. But then there's a medium tax on the middle class, if we can say Nigeria has a middle class, and then a higher tax on the higher level people. And these amounts that are being called 250,000 naira, 1.8 million for the medium class, and then above that for the top ranking Nigerians, so to speak. Talk to us a little bit about this classification and how much money are you going to make from that? Because one of the questions people have asked is how many people earn this 250,000? Let's start from that. If they are even considered poor based on this, 250,000 naira household is considered poor. How are you going to, be able to show up that revenue, knowing the classifications of Nigerians? Now, minimum wage is 70,000 naira.
I also listened to Taiwo, and I know that discussion took place in the course of the work. I doubt if Taiwo said 250 will not pay tax.
He did.
I doubt.
He did. He broke it down. 3 people, the 5-people household. He talked about income from the family being 250,000. So 250,000 between 2 people. He said you will not be taxed at that bracket.
2 people.
Yes.
2 people. Okay.
Yes.
That is 125, 125.
Yes, 125, 125.
Okay. So the low end, 125, 80, and the likes, you are exempted from paying taxes.
Okay.
That is it. At the end, I also listened to Taiwo when he was in the filler yesterday. He said the new act we have is pro-poor, and that is correct.
Yes.
So it is to pay attention to the poor. Whatever you earn as your income, spend it. It enhances your purchasing power. And once you have a good purchasing power, you go to the market. It also has the multiplier effect on the economy. When people have enough disposable income to go to the market, production goes up. And once you have production, it's a system. It's a cycle. So that is the attention paid to the low earners. The middle income, the rate is not as high as it used to be. That is the intention, and the intention also is to retain money in the hand of individual. That is the essence. What is done everywhere, and it's called progressive tax, is that the high earner, we call them high network individual, what they get, they need to pay more to the system. And we agree with him, we have a lot of high earner in Nigeria, and should possibly 50% of them start complying from next year, when this thing will be effective, then Nigeria will be on the upward swing. And the benefit, we need to say, is to the state. So we need to start paying attention to the state, not federal government. 95% of personal income tax is collected by the state. So the money, right as we speak, the states are getting a lot of money. They will get more from next year.
It raises the question of capacity, because if we're saying that the states is going to be the focus, they are the heart of this reform bills that have now been passed into law.
Yes.
You know, what about building capacity in the states? You have just alluded to the fact that this will not start, the implementation of these laws as signed will not start till next year, even though I imagine that we might start seeing changes to FIRS's names and, you know, all in the places that they have been, that they're currently seen. I imagine that they will start changing that. But it's like implementation of this is not expected until next year. And I also imagine that capacity there'll be need to build capacity in the state. And you are a tax professional. I imagine that that is also a burden that your professional body feels very strongly. What are some of the challenges you see ahead of the start of the implementation of this new reform laws?
The number one challenge I see is political will. And we need to emphasize this very well on the part of the state governors. The people at the subnational, the political will. I'll give you an example. We've talked about 65 types of taxes. We talk about 70, depending on which state you are addressing. And that has been harmonized to about 9 or thereabout now. I've not seen what has been signed. The work is about 9 or 10 to have that. Now, you know that's a major shift from what we used to have. So the people have been collecting this extra that never got into government cover anyway. They won't give up easily.
How do you address that
The governors will need political will to wade in. We need the security agent to wade in. This is not the era whereby he supported my election and as a result, go to this part of the state, go and make money and recoup. This is not the era of a politician who has never added 2 plus 2, permit my language, professionally as a tax person, goes to the governor and say, okay, we supported you. I know in this market, we can make 1 billion a month. So give me the opportunity to go there. And he goes there and he does all manners of things. That will not help this laudable effort of the federal government.
Can it be checked?
So number one, so one moment. The number one is political will.
It's very critical.
So the laws will not implement themselves.
Not at all.
Do they need to be domesticated at the state level?
No, the state will not. The state will not enact law for their tax.
Okay.
It is the prerogative of the National Assembly, and that has been done.
Okay.
And I think everybody is fine with that. But we are talking of implementation.
Okay.
The implementation number 2. When you look at capacity building, everybody talk about FRS meeting budget and target and surpassing. They are not just doing that because they are FRS. They are doing that because they are structure. You need to give, what do you call this thing? Got off my head now. A kind of freedom, autonomy.
Okay.
To the state, Internal Revenue Service. We have 36 plus 1 as we speak. Not all of them have autonomy. Some have, they just have on paper. If you don't give them administrative autonomy, you don't give them financial autonomy, ability to hire and fire, organize themselves, implement the law the way it is, allow them to breathe, don't give them names, don't stop them from implementing, that will be important. So autonomy to the various state internal revenue service, where you give them the law, just implement. Don't allow the accountant general of the state, don't allow the commissioner for finance to block them from seeing the governor. Because these are the people bringing the money. If you don't empower them at that level, we still will not get the benefit of this act.
I was going to ask that question, which is, because there's a lot that needs to be done.
Exactly.
So how do we ensure that these things are done? Because abuse, I'm looking forward to seeing how this would really work out. How do we check that kind of abuse, of that kind of authority that we see at state levels right now, to give autonomy to people to rule like that without putting any political leanings in this? How are we going to ensure that this doesn't happen?
We have a sample. So we need to market. As an institute, we have Nigeria as our jurisdiction. So it won't be fair to place some state ahead of other. But in the press, we can do that. Look at revenue generation. Look at the first 5. And go into their state and look at, do they have autonomy? Yes. Do they have free hand to do work? Yes. Look at some other states that are supposed to do very well. They are not doing very well. Go and check their internal revenue service. The governor is breathing close to the neck of the executive chairman of that state. And once those issues are not resolved, nothing will happen.
So how would we be measuring? I think that's going to be another area we'll need to look at. States that are making progress in the implementation of this. How do you intend to measure?
Well, one of the framework that has been put in place, the legal framework that has been put in place, the Joint Tax Board, is being existing, but it's better placed by this new act. Their peer review mechanism is good. And and I think even the derivation, even though it has been brought down from 50% to 30%, should still be a kind of motivation for others to say, okay, this estate is getting this as a sort of the amount of, because derivation is about the business you do in your environment, the consumption that leads to the payment of taxation, of VAT. So once you have that, then it should serve as a motivation. And I tell you, because this will work for Nigeria, it will work for all of us, we need a lot of advocacy, even from the press. Please, put this thing in the front burner. The federal government is doing very well. They can do better. But if you don't put attention on the state, you will get the benefit. And that is very important.
Well, I think that it's a fine place to leave it, because clearly it does appear that this is the first step in a long line of things that need to be done, and it just appears that we've just been given leverage, you know, to be able to carry out these things from what it is that you have said. We have to thank you very much for sharing your insights with us. Mr. Samuel Agbeluyi is the immediate past president, Chartered Institute of Taxation of Nigeria, and is also a member of the presidential tax reform bills. Has it been disbanded now, or is there still a function for them?
We're happy to go.
You're happy to
We're happy to go to look at the implementation.
Indeed. Well, we certainly will be following up with you through the implementation process.
Thank you.
Well, we'll take a break now. When we come back, we'll be looking at how small, medium, and SMEs are going to be, dealing with this new regime of taxation, and what other perks and benefits shall accrue to them as a result of it. In just a moment, please stay with us. So we've spoken about how political will, autonomy, and capacity will be needed to implement the tax reform bills. But how will this impact micro, small, and medium enterprises? We have joining us this morning the Chief Executive Officer and Director General of the Small and Medium Enterprises Development Agency of Nigeria, SMEDEN, Mr. Charles Odi. Welcome to Sunrise Daily. It's good to see you.
Thank you.
I see you wearing boldly, SMEDEN. You're carrying the matter on your head.
Yes. Thank you.
And I imagine that you must be quite excited. I don't know, I'm just imagining that you might be excited about this new reform bills, but how do you think you're going to be impacting micro, small, and medium enterprises?
You know, we are very excited, and I think that this is the best gift that His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has given the MSME ecosystem, especially as we're celebrating the MSME Day today, National MSME Day. Three things are significant from that bill. The first one is all the nuisance taxes. If you ask a small business owner, one of the major challenges why they don't want to get formalized, they'll tell you is the taxes. Because as soon as they get formalized, someone is coming to knock on their door to say they've got to pay one signing tax, they've got to pay taxes for the water that leaves that kitchen that goes into the drainage system, they've got to pay taxes for their employees, they've got to pay a lot.
And it's a reality.
It's a reality. It's a reality. And so some of them are discombobulated as to, getting formalized. So they're just behind the scene running their operations. With this new tax bill, what the president has done, he has consolidated all of those, right? And he has even put ombudsmen to help to drive these things home. So it means that if a small business owner is being harassed, I give you one instance. A gentleman actually told me who was into piggery. It says that they come to his pig farm, they count the numbers of pigs he has, and they tax him for the numbers of per pig. When the pig is being slaughtered and is going from the slaughterhouse to the market, there are people that are on the road waiting to tax him. When it gets to the market, they're taxing him. So it was not a good place to do business. But so what the president has done now is all of those news, Taiwo Oyedele puts it well. It says nuisance tax. All of those nuisance tax have been eradicated. And I think that that's the first thing that is bringing news and joy to the ears of small businesses. The second one is the fact that we have categorized our small businesses into four based on the last policy. We have the nano businesses, the micro businesses, the small businesses, and the medium businesses. So the nano categories are businesses that have less than 3 employees and are doing an annual turnover of 3 million. If you go down to break it down, it means that they are turning over 250,000 naira every month. So those people, many of them have employees who are not earning, who are just earning about the minimum wage. So all of those employees do not pay personal income tax. Even the small businesses that are not generating up to 50 million naira annual turnover, they don't pay company income tax. You see, so all of these things are helping people to want to do more business, are helping people to come to formalize, and helping to grow the ecosystem.
Oh, quite a lot. I mean, I imagine that this is what is going to be expected, that this nuisance tax has now been taken away, yes, harmonized, and, yes, but knowledge is going to be key for the small businesses, because whether or not, we just finished speaking with the professional in the tax system, and he says that political will is going to be key. Mm-hmm. That the people who are currently in the current tax regime are not going to give up easily. A lot of them are collecting taxes informally.
Yes.
And they will still be there to harass these people. But it will be incumbent upon them to know their rights. So I imagine that SMEDAN will also have his work cut out for it in terms of educating the people on what is now expected by law, and being able to stand up to people who will try to bully them with regards to taxes.
The baton has been passed to us now to start to disseminate information. We spent some time, trying to put our input in this tax reform bill that's been passed. But now it's now left to us to now go into the nooks and crannies of Nigeria to tell people what has happened. And we've said to our small business owners, when they come to harass you, what you've got to do...
Because it's not harassment.
No,
I'm glad that you used the word harass. It's harassment, because
yes,
people do feel harassed.
Yes, so at that point, you might not have any help. What we try to say is try and get a receipt for the payment that you've done. And so when you get the receipt, what Taiwo Oyedele and the chairman of the Federal Inland Revenue Service right now, which will metamorphose into NRS, has said that when you get a receipt, and then you can bring that receipt to say that even after this, you have paid these taxes, ×2 of the money that you've paid will be reimbursed to you.
Okay.
Yes, so don't fight them at the state level, because you might not get any help at the state level. Just try and get a receipt that, listen, even though the president has passed this bill, I was still made to pay this tax. get the receipt and bring it to us.
When
and
can this start? Is it
so
this now or 1st of January
the 1st of
next
January
year?
2025.
So between now.
So between now and then, we'll start to do a lot of information dissemination, town hall meetings, capacity development meetings to make sure that a lot of people are aware, because ignorance is not an excuse. So we need to go in, and you know, in my 20 months of doing business, the business of Smedan as a DG, I found out that the biggest problem in government, it's not that government is not doing a lot, it's that the people that government are doing these things for are not in the know. And that's why I thank institutions like yours for helping to bridge that gap of information dissemination and helping the people to get informed. And again, I thank you so much for having me this morning.
Well, it's certainly our pleasure. I know that today, you just mentioned it, today is MSME Day, yes. and Kayla did let me know that there's going to be an award night, which she'll be talking to. Yes. Which she'll be attending, by the way.
I will invite you, please.
Which she'll be attending, by the way. There's an MSME Awards night happening today where you rate states according to how they've been supportive to, now you say nano, micro, small, and medium enterprises. It'll be interesting to see who's going to come first today. But I think that you now have another category to rate them on, which is this tax system, how they're supporting them with the taxes. But so far, tell us, the states whom you'll be honoring today, the states who will be coming first, what exactly have they done differently for nano, micro, small, and medium enterprises?
Thank you. So if you take 10 small business owners and just put them in the room and ask them, what's your biggest challenge? All of the things that they've said is what we're going to rate them on. And I can tell you the first thing they will say is access to finance. So we, even as Smedan, are trying to democratize that access.
Not power?
Finance.
Not power?
Money.
Access to finance?
Yes, access to finance.
Okay.
And what we have done, even yesterday, with one of the state governments, Kaduna State, for instance, was signed an MOU to the tune of 1 billion naira, where small businesses in that state can get access to finance for 3 purposes. 1, to add to their working capital to continue to work. 2, to buy work equipment. So if you're in fashion, you buy sewing machines. If you're in photography, you buy cameras. And 3, to procure workspaces for them to continue to work out of. So we're rating them on 1, access to finance. How easy have small businesses been able to access financing in your state? 2, based on our policy, we've set up something called the National MSME Council. And at that council, if a small business has a problem at the state, let's take, for instance, Lagos State. If a small business has a problem in that state, they take that problem to the business member organization. If it cannot be resolved at that level, it then goes to the State Council of SMEs. And at the State Council of SMEs, the different executive governors are the chairpersons of the council. And if it cannot be resolved at the State Council, then it comes to the Federal Council, where His Excellency the Vice President chairs. And if it cannot be resolved at that council, I'm sure the Vice President takes it to the President. I often joke that there's no, if the President cannot solve your problem as a small business owner, take your problem to God. But I don't think that there's going to be any problem that His Excellency the President cannot solve as regards SMEs. So answering the question in short, how they've been able to adopt the State Council of SMEs, how they've been able to get financing for their states, how they've been able to do business in the states, policies that actually help a thriving MSME ecosystem, and last but not the least is basically how intergovernment agencies have worked together to support small businesses.
So let's talk about the categories of businesses and how they'll be taxed based on these new tax bills.
So I know right now that in the current the last tax bill, if you are doing business and you're generating about 25 million naira. Below 25 million naira, you don't get taxed.
Okay.
In this new bill, it will move to 50 million. So, and if you look at our categories
That's annually?
Annually,
Okay.
annually. And if you look at our category of businesses, the nano, micro, small, and medium, we have 39,654,385 nano, micro, small, and medium enterprises. Out of that number, 96.9% are nano businesses. It means that the small and medium are just about less than 4%, about 1.2 million small and medium businesses. But the nano and micro, so these are the mom and pop shops, these are the businesses that help us with our regular supply, retail supply. They constitute the bulk of the businesses. So it means that the people who will be paying taxes, and those guys who are 96.9% actually generate less than 3 million naira annually. So again, 96% of the MSME ecosystem will not be paying taxes. Then you come to the micro. The micro are the businesses that have 3 to 10 employees and are not doing more than 25 million annually. So it means that the nano and the micro in that category, according to this tax bill, will be exempted from paying taxes. So people want to come and formalize. People want to come and do things because, you know, they now have some tax breaks, some tax holidays, because they're not generating up to 50 million naira annually.
Okay.
So when we support them as SMEDAN and help them to transition from small to medium, from micro to nano to micro to small, then it's at that, probably at the small or the medium that they start to pay taxes based on the new tax law.
Okay, well, that's very encouraging and regularization. I want to be able to ask about, and I've always wanted to ask a tax person, when you open a new business, you haven't started anything. It's 1 week. We just registered the business. They now send you one letter that there's one payment you're supposed to make and all of that. What is that about?
The tax person will answer, but I think I think that the letter basically says that you should go and get something called your TIN. And then it's at that point that, you know, there's some cowboys that want to extort you. But what I've heard from the executive chairman is that you don't start to pay taxes from when you register. Because at that time, you have not generated any revenue, you have not declared anything, and then there's nothing for them to tax. They start to tax you after a period of at least 12 months. So it means that all of those nuisance tax, again, that will come to, is a couple of people who have understood the system and try to beat people's ignorance to extorting them.
So your solution, as you said, was don't fight it.
Don't fight it.
Get the receipt.
Get the receipt and bring it, and we will help to advocate you getting your refund, even times 2.
Okay. Well, I do hope that small businesses are watching. Are you at liberty to disclose the #1 state, or has it been disclosed already?
So I can disclose for last year. So my predecessor, who was at SMEDAN, is now a governor of the state. So he has taken all the framework and implemented it at the state level. And so last year it was the winning state for across the 36 states and the FCT for small business development. So this year, let's see if you maintain.
What state is that?
Katsina State.
Okay, so that was last year.
Yes.
So it's unclear whether Katsina would retain it for this year, but we have to thank you very much, Charles, for coming on the program this morning. Charles Odi is the Chief Executive Officer, Director General of the Small Medium Enterprises Development Agency of Nigeria, SMEDAN. Well, on that very cheerful note, I did promise you sunshine this morning on the program. We've come to the end of Sunrise Daily for this week. We ask you to have a wonderful weekend, and on top of the hour is Business Morning. Thank you for watching. I'm Maokwe Ogun Yusuf.
Indeed, have a great Friday. Enjoy your weekend. I'm Kayla Megwa.